Namaste. This is a continued effort from the previous uh, sessions regarding the physiological interpretation of Saptashati, revealing its secrets as perceived during this Navratri as well as the previous Navaratris. The ninth shloka of first adhyaya is Tatho Tato Mrugaya Vyajena हृतस्वाम्यस्य भूपतिः एकाकी हयपारुह्य जगामगहनं वनम्. So the normal translation goes like this. Thus, under the pretext of hunting, the king, having lost his sovereign, mounted his horse and went alone into the dense forest. This is the story of Suratha. So we have seen how the surata is mapped to the body, the physiological aspects of the body, and different words that are coming in the Saptashati, how they map to the physiology. Now, uh, loss of sovereignty, which is nothing but the breakdown of nervous system control. Hritaswamyaha is the word here it is used in the shloka, which is nothing but Hritaswamyaha means lost the sovereignty. In the body, it can be understood as the loss of autonomic control by the nervous system. The nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, ANS, governs the involuntary functions such as heart rate, digestion, and the respiration. When the ANS becomes dysregulated, either through chronic stress, trauma, or neurological disorders, it results in autonomic dysfunction, leading to symptoms like irregular heartbeats, digestive issues, or dizziness, known as dysautonomia. Surata's loss of sovereignty reflects the loss of regulatory control over the body's essential functions, where the central nervous system can no longer maintain balance. This can lead to autonomic dysfunction seen in disorders like uh, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, POTS, or chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS, where the body struggles to regulate the blood pressure, temperature, and heart rate. Second point in this shloka, which can be witnessed, which is evident, is going into the forest. What is this forest? So, this corresponds to a retreat into the subconscious mind. The forest, the word here it is used is Gahanam Vanam. This forest represents the subconscious mind and the inner realms of the psyche. In human physiology, this can be linked to the limbic system, particularly the amygdala and hippocampus in the brain, which govern emotions, memories, and subconscious drives. The king's journey into the forest symbolizes a retreat into the subconscious where deeper emotional and psychological issues reside. In psychological terms, this is a period of introspection and solitude where unresolved traumas or emotions come to the surface. Much like King Surata's isolation, people often seek solitude to process emotional turmoil, engaging in self reflection or meditation to heal from internal conflict. This retreat could also represent the body's natural response to illness, where it enters a state of rest and isolation to conserve energy and repair itself. Mounted on the horse is another word which is there in this shloka, which is nothing but the sympathetic activation. Surata's horse represents mobility and action governed by the sympathetic nervous system SNS, which is responsible for the fight or flight response. When the Sympathetic nervous system is activated during stress or danger. It prepares the body for physical action, such as much like how the king mounts his horse to navigate the forest. In physiological terms, this reflects the body's preparation to face challenges, with adrenaline and cortisol surging through the system, increasing heart rate, respiration, and alertness. However, prolonged activation of the SNS without rest can lead to chronic stress and burnout, which parallels Surata's journey into the unknown, facing internal and external adversities. Next shloka is Satatrashrama Satatrashrama Madrakshi द्विजवर्यस्य मेधसः प्रशान्तश्वापदाकीर्णं मुनिशिष्योपशोभितम्. There are different versions. That's why here in this version, Satatrashrama Madrakshasiddhvid Vijaya Varshasya Medasaha is there, but in another version it is Satatrashrama Madrakshi Dvijavaryasya Medasaha, like that. So there are different versions, but let's stick to one of the versions here. There he saw the hermitage of the great sage Medas, surrounded by peace and harmony, adorned with students and free from dangers. Okay, so we are talking about the Suratas entering into the forest, deep forest, Gahanam Vanam, and there he saw the hermitage, ashram of a great sage Medas, surrounded by the peace and harmony which we don't find in the cities. He was adorned with the students who are good students and free from the dangers. Even though it's a deep forest, there's no danger. What is this? What this context is all about? It's nothing but the hermitage as the brain's prefrontal cortex, the seat of higher reason. The hermitage, the ashrama, symbolizes the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the region of the brain associated with higher reasoning, concentration, and executive functions. This part of the brain, much like the hermitage, serves as a place of peaceful control, where distractions and emotional disturbances are minimized, allowing for focused thought and problem solving. The students, Munishishya, can be seen as the neural networks or neurons that work under the guidance of the PFC, responsible for learning and memory formation. This is where the mind processes higher cognition and conscious thought, free from the turmoil of lower brain functions like instincts and impulses. So, all these instincts and impulses are due to the lower brain functions. The higher cognition and the higher conscious thoughts are from the PFC. PFC is nothing but the prefrontal cortex. So, prefrontal cortex is representing the ashrama or hermitage. Next, the peaceful environment. This is nothing but the PNS, which is parasympathetic nervous system. The peaceful surroundings of the hermitage reflect the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system PNS, which induces a state of calm and recovery. The PNS, often referred to as the rest and digest system, contracts the sympathetic nervous system and helps the body return to a state of balance after stress. King Surata's entry into the hermitage symbolizes the body's transition from a fight or flight state to a state of rest and healing, where the mind and body are no longer under threat and can engage in introspection and spiritual growth. The third point in this shloka is sage Medhas as the embodiment of wisdom and regulation. Sage Medhas, Medha Shakti, we call it as in Sanskrit. It's a sage Medhas represents the Medha Shakti. He is going to represent the hypothalamus, a key brain structure involved in homeostasis and the regulation of hormones. Much like the sage, the hypothalamus maintains balance within the body, controlling hunger, thirst, sleep cycles, and temperature regulation, which is in turn is also going to contribute to the circadian rhythm. The hypothalamus, in conjunction with the pituitary gland, can be seen as the inner sage that oversees the body's psychological needs and ensures that equilibrium is maintained, even in the face of external stresses. May this, as a symbol of wisdom, thus reflects the body's ability to regain balance after turmoil, much like how King Suratha finds solace and guidance in the sage's hermitage. This is all about the shloka, 10th shloka. Next one, let's see the next shloka, 11th shloka. ततस्तो कञ्चित् सकालञ्च मुनिना तेन सत्कृतः इतश्चेतश्च विचरन् तस्मिन् मुनिवराश्रमे. After seeing the hermitage of uh, sage Medas, he stayed there for some time, treated with respect by the sage, and wandered around the hermitage, contemplating deeply. This is what happened. So each and every shloka of Saptashati is of very much significance and has a powerful impact on every part of human life. The first point here is the contemplation and the brain's default mode network, DMN, default mode network. King Surata's wandering and contemplation within the peaceful hermitage reflects the activation of the brain's default mode network, DMN, a network of interacting brain regions active during introspective thought and self referential thinking. The DMN plays a crucial role when the brain is at rest and not focused on external tasks, supporting processes like daydreaming, memory recall, and future planning. These are all very important parts of our life. This period of contemplation symbolizes the brain's natural tendency to process emotions, re-evaluate decisions, and engage in self awareness when it is not engaged in specific external tasks. This network is essential for mental health as it allows the mind to process experiences and regulate emotions. King Surata's wandering in the hermitage represents this important phase of self reflection where the mind begins to heal and reorganize itself after trauma or stress. Second point in this shloka is extended period of recovery and nervous system healing. The time spent in the hermitage can be linked to a period of nervous system recovery. In terms of autonomic function, after prolonged stress or physical exertion, the body enters a state of recovery driven by the parasympathetic nervous system PNS, which promotes rest, healing, and digestion. During this time, the body repairs damaged tissues, rebalances hormone levels, and replenishes its energy reserves. The quiet and respectful treatment King Suratha receives in the hermitage mirrors how the body requires peaceful environments for proper healing. That's why people go for retreats, they go for forests, they go for meditation centers, yoga centers in the search of peace. Rest and mindful wandering, much like meditation and contemplation, activates the neuroplasticity, allowing the brain to create new neural pathways and recover from stress induced damage. Now, the respect and emotional regulation, which is nothing but the support from external influences. The sage's respect for King Suratha represents the supportive influences that are crucial for emotional recovery. In human physiology, social bonds and positive interpersonal interactions activate the release of oxytocin, a hormone that reduces the stress and enhances feelings of trust and safety. This emotional support promotes mental and physical well being. The cerebral cortex processes social and emotional experiences, and positive interactions help regulate emotional responses via the amygdala and hippocampus. Much like Surata's respectful treatment by the sage, empathy, kindness, and care from others stimulate dopamine and serotonin production. That's why being empathetic, being showing the kindness and showing the care towards others will help them to stimulate their dopamine and serotonin production, which aids in emotional regulation and stress relief. So that's how we have to socialize ourselves with others for the benefit of others, and also they will be socializing with us, and they will be showing us the empathy, kindness, and care, such that our dopamine and serotonin levels improve. This is how the social bonding is closely knit in our society. Next shloka is 12th one. So chintayat tatra mamatva krishtamanasah मत्पूर्वैः पालितं पूर्वं मया हीनं पुरं हि तत्. सोचिन्तयत् तदा तत्र. While there, he thought deeply. Mamatva Krishtamanasa. His mind caught in attachment. Matpurvai palitam purvam. Mayahinam puram hi tat. Reflecting on how his kingdom, once protected by his ancestors, was now lost without him. This is the emotion which is shown. Attachment and the role of the limbic system is the first point which it is signifying from the physiological perspective. The mamatva kristamanasaha, akrishtamanasaha, mind caught in attachment. Mamatva is mamata atva, or mamatva. Its mind is caught in attachment. This refers to the emotional ties and attachments that Surata experiences. Surata is the body here. In human physiology, attachment is closely linked to the limbic system, particularly the amygdala, which governs emotional responses, and the hippocampus, which is involved in memory formation and the emotional recall. Okay, we have already seen this, but I have to repeat certain things to reconnect them and continue the explanation. Pardon me for repeating certain things, but it will give you the a concrete concept in your mind, and you will be able to further analyze and understand it deeply than what is explained here. Okay, King Surata's reflection on his lost kingdom parallels how the brain processes grief and attachment, often replaying past events and emotional experiences. So this is what we also always face. We will be lost in the past experiences and the emotional experiences, and those are going to have impact on our day-to-day activities and our emotional levels, stress levels. So they are going to increase. So this type of rumination is common in state of loss. If somebody lost their beloved ones, or failure in a certain uh, work. So loss, failure, or separation, the separation from an object or a person. So in all these cases, loss, failure, or separation, where the limbic system keeps cycling through memories, emotional responses, and unresolved attachments. This is how it's going to act. Second point is the stress regulation or a stress response and the cortisol regulation. Okay, emotional stress triggers the release of cortisol. This is a known factor that cortisol is released from the adrenal glands as part of the HPA axis, which is nothing but the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Prolonged attachment to loss, as reflected in Sushruta's thoughts, can lead to chronic activation of the HPA axis, resulting in Heightened cortisol levels, which can have detrimental effects on the immune system, metabolism, and emotional regulation. People quite often ask us in our clinic that why the emotions or the psychosomatic disorders, how they are going to have an impact on the immune system or the metabolism or digestive system, or how it is going to act on the body. So this is how, okay, HPA axis, prolonged attachment to the loss, it can lead to the chronic activation of the HPA axis. Okay, it is going to increase the, elevate the cortisol levels, then have the detrimental effects on the immune system, metabolism, and emotional regulation. The cortisol dysregulation can cause sleep disturbances. That's another way. Sleep disturbances, weight gain, and anxiety. Even weight gain, we usually for the obese patients, when we are discussing, so there also we see the contribution of psychological factors. So weight gain, sleep disturbances, anxiety, all of which mirror the emotional turbulence King Surata experiences while reflecting on his kingdom. Long-term cortisol elevation also negatively impacts neurogenesis. If you have a long-term cortisol elevation, it is going to negatively impact the neurogenesis in the hippocampus region, impairing the memory and increasing vulnerability to depression. So, next point in this shloka is inherited trauma and genetic memory. One of the uh, interesting topics of physiology, the reference to the kingdom protected by his ancestors. Matpurvai palitam says, by my ancestors, says the Surata. Suggests that Surata's attachment is not only to his current kingdom, but also to his ancestral legacy. In genetics, the concept of inherited trauma or epigenetic changes reflects how emotional experiences, particularly those related to loss and attachment, can be passed down through generations. Okay, so this is termed as Vamsharishta. In one word, astrology says this as Vamsharishta, and we have a lot of scientific terms here in genetics and physiology to explain that. Epigenetic research shows that stress responses and traumatic experiences can leave marks on DNA, influencing how future generations react to stress. King Surata's reflection on his ancestors' rule, that is Pitru, can be seen as the body's way of processing genetic memory, where past emotional experiences of loss, responsibility, and attachment shape present day responses to similar challenges. It's not only the experiences by herself, but by his or her ancestors from several generations, which are encoded in the DNA. So we covered four shlokas. I think it's a good discussion for today. Let's end this for today and see the next shlokas in the upcoming sessions. Thank you, one and all. Happy Mahanavami.